Hello teachers, today we're going to be talking about how to teach Für Elise by Beethoven, or its official title, Bagatelle in A minor without Opus 59. This is not a tutorial on how to play this piece. There are approximately 1001 videos on YouTube for how to do that, but instead I want to talk about how to teach Für Elise and what some of the pitfalls and thoughts I have for you are on that. Many teachers do not like to teach this piece. Why is that? Well, frankly, it's overplayed, and so we're just tired of hearing it. But beyond that, it's quite a bit more difficult than many people think it is, and so usually students just play it poorly. And so teachers are just tired of hearing it butchered. In addition to that, students usually play it too early in their progression, and they don't have even the technical facility to deal with it. So if a student comes in and says, hey, I learned the beginning of Für Elise, can you help me with the rest of it? Teachers spend a lot of time rehabilitating poorly learned things or technically difficult things that their students aren't necessarily ready for. However, I do feel like if a student comes in and says, I want to play Für Elise, that we have to respond to that in some way. Our students are paying customers, and if they would like to learn how to play something, then we need to help them get to that point. So let's say a student who's really truly not ready to play the original version of Für Elise comes in and says, I want to play Für Elise. I think we have a few options. The first is we can say, you know, that piece is really hard. I'd love to work on it with you when you're a little bit older, when you have a little bit more experience. And then I do think as teachers it's our responsibility to remember that and cycle back to it and even make a plan, decide to work on some of the things that are presented in this piece so that maybe a year later you can come back and say to the student, would you like to work on Für Elise now? Are you still interested in playing that? And then have prepared them for that project. The other option is just to teach either the A section by rote or to use a simplified version of this. And there are many simplified versions available. The one I'd like to direct you to is in the Faber Piano Adventures curriculum in their performance book 2B. So that's the orange performance book. And I'll put that in the Sheet Music Plus link that's in the description of this video, along with many collections that Für Elise is found in. I personally am today looking at Jane McGraw's Masterwork Classics. This is in level 7. So just by way of context, this book also contains things like the easiest Bach inventions, sonatina movements by Clementi and Kuhlau, kind of mid-level sonatinas, Chopin preludes. So again, this is not a beginner piece. It's not put in a beginner book. It's a difficult piece. By way of leveling, the RCM syllabus lists this at level 7. And for those of you, my Illinois colleagues, it's on our AIM syllabus level 8. So clearly, other people do not think this is a beginner's piece either. All right, so if you do have a strong intermediate student who wants to play this and they are ready, you think, for this, I'd like to give you a list now of things that are required, skills or knowledge or technical things that are required to really play this well, to beautifully play this and give a good performance. And so if you find as I go through this list that your student doesn't know these things or isn't technically capable, then you need to be very considerate before you give them this piece, that you either prepare them in other ways or that you wait just a little bit longer, or like I said, use a simplified version before you get to the real thing. All right, so what's difficult about Für Elise? It's not the key signature. This is an A minor with a modulation to F major, so the key signature is not the problem. However, I think the time signature is one of the biggest issues. Für Elise is written in 3/8. Beethoven decided to write it that way and not in 3/4. So that means that the whole piece comprises of a lot of 16th notes, a lot of 8th notes too, but a lot of 16th notes, and then 32nd notes all over the place, and then even 16th note triplets. So given that most methods don't present students with 3/8 time or 16th notes till somewhere around level 3 or 4, again, we've just got a hurdle right there in actually reading the rhythm. Now let's say you do have a student who either can read the rhythm or who you've done a little bit of rote work, so they're not worried so much about the rhythm. They're able to actually execute the rhythms correctly by reading or rote. The other big issue with the rhythm is that it's very difficult to keep this piece going in one steady tempo throughout. I'm sure you've all had a student play, or you've heard a student play the A section at actually a pretty good tempo. And then they get to the B section, and they can't go anywhere near the same tempo that they started off with. So that is a real legitimate issue with this piece. More things that are difficult about this, as far as reading pitch goes, it's a very wide range on the staff. There are several ledger lines. And in addition to that, the left hand moves a lot and even moves into the same geographical location that the right hand is in. So for students who've done a lot of work with chords or a relatively stationary left hand pattern for most of their pieces, that's going to be a significant challenge of just all that moving around. There's also a chromatic scale and a fast A minor arpeggio in the right hand, so those are things that you want to make sure your student can do. And then as far as just general things that are typical of Beethoven or classical era style, we have the need to balance a melody over an accompaniment, especially when you have the broken chords, or later on when you have the repeated notes. Those can very quickly become way too loud and overpowering of the melody. There's also a wide range of dynamics, and which is very typical of Beethoven, and something that students have to be able to do. There's legato pedaling, which again, beginner students will not have experienced. If your edition is suggesting that they play each measure with a clean pedal, that requires regular practice of that legato pedaling. And of course, there are a lot of decisions around pedaling to be made in this piece too. So using a good edition is really important for that as well. And then I think the last important thing to note with this is that much of this piece is written at a piano or pianissimo dynamic, and much of it is flowing and moving around the piano. So if your students don't have a flowing, relaxed mechanism, their technique, if they're not able to, or to play with that lovely, relaxed, flowing movement, then it's just going to be very difficult for them to play this beautifully, play artistically or expressively. And it's just helpful to remember that one of the things that is most motivating to our piano students, besides being able to play music that they recognize, which is a great way to motivate them, is also just that they can actually do and execute well and play well the music that we've given them. There's nothing less motivating, I know from my own personal experience, than working on a piece for months and months and just not feeling like you're able to achieve the sound that you hear in your ear. So I hope there have been a few ideas in here that are helpful to you as you think about teaching Für Elise, especially this month since it's Beethoven's 250th birthday. I wish you all the best in your teaching. Please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and checking out my website. Thank you.